Notre Dame had its 14th practice in the month of August here on Tuesday, the 24th, and blueandgold.com was there to take in the first 30 minutes that was available to the media. We'll give you guys the takeaways and the nuggets right here in this video before we dive into it. Please hit the thumbs up, help support what we're doing here at blueandgold.com, and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're not yet. Time to bring in Tyler Horka, blueandgold.com beat writer, to discuss this August 24th practice. First 30 minutes were available to the media. So as we record this, Notre Dame's still out there on the practice field. So what did media get to see? Was it a stretch fest? What did you guys get to see out there today?
Yeah, Mike, we've gotten pretty used to that. It was another stretch fest today, probably 15, 20 minutes of stretching. But, there are some things to take away from those stretching lines. Like today I noticed in a particular when they get close to doing a back pedal stretch and they're kind of going backwards, warming up the legs, whatever gets warm when you're doing a back pedal. Even the quarterbacks, the running backs, all those guys are backpedaling, and they'll do like some sort of handshake right before they get into that drill. So it just seems like the team chemistry has come along. You'd expect that 2.5 weeks into a training camp, but it seems like this team is in a good place mentally. After the stretching lines, they went straight into some routes on air work. So it's just quarterbacks working strictly with wide receivers. And I know we've been beating this drum for the last week or so, ever since Jack Cohn was named the starting quarterback of this team, but he's far and away the best quarterback on this team. I know there's a lot of offseason chatter with people saying, hey, maybe someone can give him a run for his money, but Jack Cohn is the quarterback of this team. He looks like the QB number one every single time they do. I mean, it's especially evident in situations like that where it's just a quarterback, it's just a wide receiver. You could really see a difference in where Jack Cohn throws the football compared to Drew Pine and Tyler Buckner. He throws a tighter spiral. It's on the money where guys can catch the ball, turn and run upfield. Today we saw Drew Pine a little bit behind some guys. Tyler Buckner maybe a little bit out ahead of some guys. Jack Cohn, it's pretty much on the money every time. You'd expect that in routes on air with a quarterback who's in his fifth year of college football and a guy who's really trying to make noise like Jack Cohn.
Anything with personnel groupings at the receiver position, second team receivers, I know you wanted to touch on, Tyler.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at the top, it's the same guys that you would expect: Braden Lenzy, Avery Davis, and Kevin Austin. Those guys have really stolen all of the ones. They look like the guys who are going to run out onto the field first against Florida State on September 5th. But the guys who come in after them, it's getting a little dicey. I mean, some of the names maybe you wouldn't expect. True freshman Lorenzo Styles has been a staple with the second team of late. He was out there again today when the teams came together and ran drives on air. So that's 11 on 0 going down the field. We got to see that today from the first, second, and third team. And I thought the second team wide receivers were really interesting. You had Styles out there. You had Lawrence Keys, who was a guy and another senior that you'd expect to get a lot of those reps when some of those starting seniors come out. Yeah, you had Matt Salerno out there. You had Jaden Thomas out there. So those are two guys right there who you're thinking, okay, are these guys really going to get reps, when the game matters against Florida State and beyond? So I really like Matt Salerno, though. He's been a guy that's pretty sure-handed. We saw him a lot last year in punt return opportunities. Maybe this is the year that he gets his wide receiving opportunities. Maybe this is the year he gets a scholarship, too. Maybe this is the year of Matt Salerno. It's definitely been the fall camp of Matt Salerno because he's looked pretty good. And there's just a lot of guys who are kind of creeping up the depth chart there at wide receiver. I know, like I said, they've kind of separated at the top, but there's a lot of guys coming up. Lorenzo Styles, Matt Salerno, Lawrence Keys, who could push for reps.
Yeah, talk about Lawrence Keys. I think that's someone who a lot of Notre Dame fans would have hoped that would have jumped into that starting rotation. Xavier Watts, someone I feel like him and Keys we get asked about a ton. Tell me about those guys in fall camp. Have they been dinged up? Are they just not getting reps? What's been the status of Lawrence Keys and Xavier Watts?
I think Lawrence Keys has looked really good. He's a guy that's gotten a lot of reps with the second team. Xavier Watts, you see him in those individual drills that I mentioned, when it's just quarterbacks and wide receivers. And, he looks like one of the guys. He's out there running sharp routes, catching passes, doesn't drop a lot of passes. Then it gets into those situations where it's 11 on 0. And then especially once you get into some of the scrimmages that we've seen on Thursday, he's just kind of non-existent. He's not getting onto the football field. So the media, you got to remember, we're not seeing the entirety of these practices. We've only done that twice, both on Thursdays. And, there's got to be something that's happening behind the scenes in these practices that's keeping Xavier Watts off the field. Maybe it's an injury, maybe it's performance when we're not here watching, but there is something that's clearly holding him back. And Lorenzo Styles has kind of been the beneficiary of that. He's getting a lot of reps and he looks pretty good.
And Tyler, wrapping up here, I know you wanted to talk about the cornerbacks. What stood out to you when you saw that group today?
So really, the entirety of fall camp, it's every time we've gone out there and watched the cornerbacks in individual drills, or whether they're lining up for scrimmages, or whether it's 7-on-7, 5-on-5, it's always been Clarence Lewis and Cam Hart who run out there first. I went outside today after the 11-on-0 drives, and the cornerbacks are the first group that you see right there. I saw Tariq Bracy lined up next to Cam Hart, so that's interesting. And then again, that doesn't mean that he's stealing first team reps away from Clarence Lewis, but usually when you go out there and you see those two guys lined up together, that's who they're going to kind of be working with throughout the day. So I'm sure they're over there right now, and maybe Tariq Bracy is taking some reps with the ones. And look, he's a senior. He's a guy that knows that this is kind of his moment. There's two younger guys ahead of him on the depth chart at cornerback, and as a senior, you're like, I had this opportunity last year to be in these guys' shoes. Didn't really make the most of it as a junior. So, by all accounts, and that's Brian Kelly talking, that's Mike Mickens talking, Marcus Freeman, everybody has said that Tariq Bracy is going to kind of have the year that he should have had last year. He's definitely had a really good fall camp, and it was interesting to see him working sort of with the ones, like I said, if you would call it that, in those individual drills.
If anything to take from that, it's like a leadership thing, kind of stepping up there with some of the young guys. Tyler, appreciate you joining us, man. We'll have you back on tomorrow. You guys get another first 30 minutes of practice, so we'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Yep, that's the last time that we get it too, so we'll make the most of it.
That's going to do it for today's video. Like we said there in the wrap up, make sure to check back on Wednesday for that practice video again. First 30 minutes of practice allowed to the media. The Fighting Irish will be practicing inside the stadium. And we get to talk to Brian Kelly after tomorrow's practice, and we'll have the press conference highlights posted right here at blueandgold.com and on our YouTube page. Appreciate you guys, and have a great rest of your day.